Good morning and welcome to the Columbus Chamber of Commerce's CEO Insights program. I'm Keith Martinez, Managing Partner at Plant Moran's office here in Columbus. As we close out another traditional busy season, we're optimistic about the summer and fall as the environment improves. We are seeing positive trends and are planning for historical growth levels. We have so much to be excited for. And speaking of excitement, Plant Moran is proud to serve as a long-standing series partner. The Chamber's CEO Insights program has welcomed impactful conversations with Central Ohio leaders for nearly 10 years. And today we have the pleasure of continuing that lineup with Claire Coder. Claire is the founder and CEO of Flow, which includes both AntFlow and Workflow. I'd now like to welcome Jennifer Griffith, Regional President of First Merchants Bank, to introduce Claire. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy today's program.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. First Merchants Bank has supported the Columbus Chamber's CEO Insight series since its start in 2013, and we're honored to welcome today's guest as a presenting partner. The stories we've heard over all these years continue to inspire us, and we're excited to hear from today's entrepreneur. We have the pleasure of hearing from Claire Coder, founder and CEO of Flow, which includes both AntFlow and Workflow. You are likely familiar with Claire's remarkable entrepreneurial journey, which started at the age of 16 when she launched her first company. She has since been featured in TeenVogue, Forbes, and has starred in the first season of TLC's Girl Starter. AntFlow's mission is to ensure everyone has access to menstrual products. And to date, they have donated over 500,000 menstrual products to people in need. Interviewing Claire is Colleen Marshall, co-anchor of NBC4 at 6 and 11. We look forward to an inspiring and insightful conversation with Claire and Colleen. And thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you at our next CEO Insights program. Thank you.
Well, Claire, you have to hear almost every day of your life. I can't believe you've accomplished so much at your age. I don't compliment or something you would get tired of hearing about, but let's start at the beginning. How did this start? You were a college student when Eureka, it hit, right?
Yes, well, Eureka, I got my period. That's really how this started. So I founded my company actually at a startup weekend. So I was at startup weekend at Cover My Meds. This was years ago. At the time I was studying at The Ohio State University, and I was studying comparative religion, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a button business when I was in high school. I loved selling things, and I loved making people happy through selling them the stuff that made them happy. And while I was at this startup weekend on Friday night, I got my period. And I didn't have a tampon or pad with me. I was a $40 Uber ride from The Ohio State University. And I'm in the bathroom of Cover My Meds, and I'm looking around, and there's that coin-operated tampon and pad dispenser. If you menstruate, you know this. If you don't menstruate, you probably don't know the scenario, so I'll walk you through this graphic situation. You get your period, you are struggling to find a tampon, you MacGyver your own tampon with toilet paper, and then you look all over the bathroom to find a quarter to use the coin-operated tampon and pad dispenser, and then you cross your fingers if you find a quarter that it is filled. Of course, there was no quarter, it was not stocked, and there I was making my own tampon out of toilet paper, and I was like, there has to be a better way. If toilet paper is offered in bathrooms, why aren't tampons and pads? They all respond to natural bodily functions. So that was my pitch at Startup Weekend. And I was like, look, Cover My Meds offers free lunch. Why don't we get free tampons, people? Now I'm glad to say that Cover My Meds does offer AntFlow. But at the time, this was back in 2016, that's when I had the idea. And I always say that people should solve problems that are most intimate to them. And that was my most intimate problem at that moment in time.
You know, when you think about it, it's remarkable that until 2016, this wasn't something that we took for granted, that these products that women need all the time aren't as available as toilet paper. Okay, but now you have this idea. Here's this product that women must have. There's a great need for it. But going from idea to product to marketing to success, that's a leap. So what would and at the time you were what, 18, 19?
18, yep.
So were you a freshman?
I was. So it was only one semester in college. And, I was not the first person that talked about this. Actually, our very own Nancy Kramer in Columbus, Ohio, did a TED Talk in, I believe, 2013 about how Apple offered tampons and pads in the bathrooms, but that was a rarity. And at the time, there was no states that had any legislation regarding menstrual products. And she did that TED Talk. And then I came along a few years later, and I had this idea, and you're right. I ended up leaving university. All I had was my idea and a lot of grit and a lot of hustle. I'm from Toledo, Ohio, so I knew no one in Columbus. And I got an apartment in the short north. I illegally rented out the 2 other bedrooms and started an Airbnb enterprise so that I could live there for free until it got shut down, obviously, because you aren't supposed to run an Airbnb with North Step Realty. And I used that money. And then I also started waitressing at Mozart's Cafe in Clintonville. And I used that money to start buying product. And I did small tests. I bought product off the shelf. And I went around the city of Columbus and I said, here's a first flow pack for $250. Here's your tampons, a display box, and a little bit of information so that you can put all of this in the bathroom so your customers, employees, and guests can get access to this product in their bathrooms. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of hustle. There was a lot of grit. But my first customer was actually Harvard University. I called up one of my friends who was the president of student government there. And I said, can you just please allocate $5,000 to buy tampons and pads for your university? And she was like, okay. And then they bought $5,000 worth of tampons and pads, and I had them shipped to the university with no boxes, no strategy. I just shipped them $5,000 worth of tampons and pads. They're not a customer because that was a horrible direction. And you got to have a dispenser, you have to organize things, but I just shipped them $5,000 worth of tampons and pads. But I was able to say Harvard University is a customer. And then from there, I was able to develop more of a strategy. But when I think about business, so often people are like, I need a business plan and I need a strategy. And I'm like, you just need to know if people are going to buy the shit that you're trying to sell. And that's how I started my company, just seeing if people actually would pay for the idea that I had before I went and built a dispenser, before I went and raised money, before I had a giant business plan that took 10,000 hours to put together. I first wanted to see would people pay for the idea that I had.
And now your product is not something that you run into another store and pick up, right? Tell me about how you took this idea and then went organic.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we started with just random off-the-shelf tampons and a 3D printed box. That was like the beginning. And from there, I really listened to what my customers asked for. As I mentioned, there was Harvard. Harvard was like, Claire, we can't just have a little box of tampons because people are taking the box and pouring the tampons into their bags. We need something that's more hygienic and on the wall. We need something that janitors can easily clean all surfaces and that is out of the way. And so that was insight number one. In addition to that, we heard feedback that from a facilities perspective, one of our advisory members is Carrie Jaros, the CEO of Gojo and Ventures of Purell. From a facilities perspective, you need to have something that's really easy to reload because most of the impact is on the janitor, having to figure out how to reload a dispenser, having to clean everything now, especially in times of COVID. Their job is really strenuous and there's a lot of activities. So you have to reduce the time that it takes to reload the dispenser. And so with that, we actually designed tampons and pads that were unique to our dispenser, which you can see right behind me, that are in a cartridge that's incredibly easy for a facilities member to reload. And so we never built anything with assumptions. We only built what people asked for. And then also when they asked for it, we asked how much they would pay for it. And so that's how we continue to develop and innovate on our product lines.
But this product line, it's not like you invented the wheel. Women have been using pads and tampons for years and years and years. I'm surprised that companies like Kotex didn't look at you and think, who's this upstart trying to move into our arena and start this essentially this new business with products that we've had for years. Did you get pushback, or did you get companies like that saying, we're going to come in and undercut your price?
So for all intents and purposes at this moment, we're not competing with them. We have a different channel of distribution, right? As you mentioned, we did not recreate the tampon. We recreated the delivery of the necessity, right? So no longer when you're in the middle of your workday, whether you're at Google or Facebook or Twitter, all of our customers, you don't have to worry and go to the store, leave your workplace and come back to get the product. Or if you're at the Greater Columbus Convention Center, one of our customers as well, you don't have to leave your cheer competition to go to the local bodega to get a tampon and pad. So we're not direct competitors, although our delivery mechanism is a different strategy. But in terms of competition, I was also flabbergasted. Why isn't Cintas doing this? Why isn't Georgia Pacific? Why haven't any of these people created a better mechanism for not just dispensing tampons and pads, but also disposal of tampons and pads? And at the end of the day, it's really just who they have at the table. If you look at these organizations, these facility leaders, they don't necessarily have somebody who is in the bathroom, the female bathroom, looking at it with a microscopic lens of how can my life be better? And that has changed, obviously, in the past 3 to 4 years. But when I started the company 4 or 5 years ago, there weren't those people at the table. And so I was really grateful to have that opportunity of a different perspective to be able to solve for so many of the problems that you and I probably face.
I want to take you back in time a little bit, because you were 18 and a freshman, not well funded. You mentioned you had a button business in high school. I want people to understand the kind of personality that leads to this successful company at the age you are. So tell me about your button business.
So I received a button maker from my grandma for holiday, and I started making buttons and magnets and compact mirrors. I was a sophomore in high school in Toledo, Ohio, and my dad told me, or I ran out of inventory because I'd given all this stuff away. My dad was like, well, Claire, I'm not paying for your next batch. You got to figure out how to fund it yourself. And so I started selling the buttons, and I would go to local arts and crafts shows. Then I started an online shop on Etsy. I was really grateful to become one of the top sellers on Etsy for buttons and magnets and compact mirrors. And that's really where it started. And I wasn't fantastic at school. I'm dyslexic, and school didn't come naturally to me. But business, in the sense of creating a product that people found value in, that came more naturally. And I was able to, generate enough income to be able to pay my friends to do my homework for me, because I hated doing it. And my parents said, well, Claire, we won't question you as long as you keep delivering A+. And so I was like, got it. I understand the system now. And so I paid for that. And then I also had enough money to buy my own car. And that's really where it started. But I think it started even earlier. I had my first lemonade stand when I was really, really young. And instead of selling lemonade, I sold beer to construction workers, because I never saw my dad drink lemonade, but I did see him drink beer, and he looked a lot like the construction workers. And so I think, like, from an early age, it was just understanding people, listening to them, and then seeing what they would pay for.
So just like the rental laws in Columbus, the liquor laws didn't apply to you either as a child.
Well, yeah. So I will say, as I've gone farther and farther along in business, I've followed more rules. I started out as like a legal liquor saleswoman, right? And then I made my button company, and my first designs were the logo for the Ohio State University, in which I got a cease and desist letter the same day that I got my acceptance letter into the university. So like, skirted all that, but now we run a really well organized and aligned business with the law.
So when you go away to college, your parents already know you have this business mind. And how do you give them the information that I am going to be leaving college now to sell tampons?
Yeah, it wasn't a great pitch, leaving university as an only child to talk about menstruation for the rest of my life. And I don't want to discount, like we're laughing, but I don't want to discount how difficult this was for me. I'm an only child. I grew up in a town where the only way to be successful was to get a college degree. We weren't in San Francisco where college dropout was a trendy thing to raise money. Like college dropout was a failure, right? And so I was actually at Acre in Clintonville. That's where I had met my parents. This was actually at the end of my first semester. They had come to pick me up to take me home from college, and was at Acre. And I said, well, you want to visit my new apartment? At that time, I had already moved all my stuff out of my dorm into the new apartment that I rented in the short north, and let them know that I was going to be leaving college to start this company. And, logical reactions, why don't you just finish your college degree and then at least you'll have something to fall back on? That was a logical question. And for me, I looked at it in terms of odds, like starting a business, starting a startup, the odds of success are like 0.05% chance, probably even lower for women who want to run a venture-backed company. And it's even lower if you put half of your eggs in an entirely different basket. And so I knew that I needed to put all my eggs in this 0.01% chance to even make a chance, because then you just cut it in half if you're splitting your time. So for me, it made sense, although it didn't make logical sense for anybody else. But in my mind, it did. And so I did end up leaving. I didn't talk to my parents for about a year after that. It was really, really difficult. I'm sure we have parents listening. So if you're listening, just, try to hear your kid out and don't try to talk to them, and definitely don't cut them off of health insurance for a year once they start college. That would be really great. Just, PSA.
So now, again, I'm getting personal, and you don't have to answer these personal questions, but when your company took off and it became clear that your idea was indispensable, excuse the pun, and you did start connecting with these Google and these and Harvard, what did that kind of smooth the waters a little bit for the family that, wait, this is brilliant?
It was a slow takeoff, right? Every success looks like it happened overnight, but I didn't pay myself for the first 2.5 years. We finally raised a seed round of funding at the end of 2018. December of 2018, I raised $1.5 million to build the company. And then in February of 2020, I raised an additional 1.2 million. So to date, we've raised 2.7 million, but for hardware companies, that's very, very little. And I am really grateful that we have been able to attract really, really large customers, everything from JLL to the largest convention centers to the largest entertainment centers. But going day to day, it doesn't always feel that way, right? Like there's never just this instant launch point, now I can tell my parents were a grave success, because still at the end of 2019, I was like, we got this. We're on track to continue to grow and win. And then 2020 hits and you're like, I was staring at myself. I'm like, yes, people, menstruation doesn't stop for a pandemic, but we rely on people menstruating outside of the home. And so for me, it's really been, there's never really a point of success. And as soon as I got comfy, the world decides to have a global pandemic. And so, my parents are kind of happy now, but it's hard to explain.
Yeah, with COVID, I was going to ask you about that. COVID hits, no one's going into the workplace anymore. No one's going to businesses or restaurants or out. So the menstrual products obviously are what you're going to pick up at the grocery store. What kind of an impact was that for you? Were you one of the companies that was teetering because of changes in the market?
Right. So 2018 and 2019, our entire customer base were restaurants and office buildings entirely. And so we do some manufacturing in China. And in December of 2019, we actually had a few factory members pass away due to COVID. So I was privy on what was going on internationally. So when I understood that it was coming into the United States, I understood the severity earlier than I think others did. And in February, we had the opportunity to, I mean, I took all of the money that I had just raised to continue to grow AntFlow and retooled all of our pad production to make FDA approved 3-ply masks. And this was in February. So before everybody had masks. And I did this with the sole goal of wanting to keep everybody on the team. Like there was really no other question. I was like, I have one goal and it's to keep everybody employed. Because I really, really care about my team members and I really care about their success. And yes, I'm the one getting interviewed for this podcast, but they make me look really good. They're the ones that really, quote unquote, keep the lights on, right? They're doing all the hard work. So we retooled pads, our pad production made FDA approved 3-ply masks. It quickly hit capacity. We started to develop other partnerships. And before we knew it, with a lot of hustle and 20-hour days by everyone on the team, we had contracts with the state of Michigan, Veterans Affairs, and we were supporting all frontline workers across the United States with our medical grade masks. And that was our 2020. And so it was the pivot of from menstrual products to masks, all of your basic necessities. And that's how we kept afloat. And now, you know, we're now focused on AntFlow entirely, but 2020, that agility allowed us to continue to thrive throughout the year.
You know, you've mentioned your team a couple times. How did you recruit people to this company? Because in a way you are selling an idea. I mean, even though obviously you have a product, you're selling this concept that women deserve to have these products available to them where they are. Mm-hmm. So how did you recruit the people, and did you look for people who could be as enthusiastic as you are?
I'll admit, I suck at recruiting. Team building never came naturally to me. I'm an only child. I was raised to believe that I had to do it all and I had to maintain control because I didn't grow up in a household where there was much of any other support. And so from an early age, I did control all circumstances at the household. I took all the leadership there. And that kind of continued on to my really pathetic leadership style for the first few years of the company. And I'm still not very good. Like I have a lot of learning to do there. And I'm really grateful that my team accepts that and challenges me to do better constantly. But from a team development standpoint, early on, it was, I'll take whoever I can get. I just need a warm body. And early on too, we didn't have a lot of funding and we definitely didn't have profit. So I got who I could afford. And now I'm really, really grateful that we're hiring talent that we need and that we want. And that is a different caliber. It's the types of people that are on our team currently that are okay with raising their hand and challenging me. They're the people that say, hey, Claire, you know, I know you're steadfast in that idea, but you probably have a gap in this idea and we probably should be focusing over here. And so those are the types of people that I'm now surrounded by, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And I wish I could answer more questions on this topic, but really I should be the one that's listening to other interviews that know more about this topic because I'm not the expert.
Well, you have had to learn, you know, you talked about, I'm going to live in this apartment. I'm going to take the money I'm making waiting tables to get product and to push it out. You've had to learn every facet of the business, and you've had to do it on your own. So how, you know, what would you say to other potential entrepreneurs about the first steps and the missteps that you've been through?
Well, I definitely didn't do it on my own, just to clarify. I am a learner through people and through making mistakes. And so I was really, really grateful and grateful to this day to have so many people that have surrounded me with support. And I am grateful to have somebody to call whenever I need help or whenever I don't know how to do something. That's how I learn. I will say some of the mistakes that I have seen others take, and this is a blessing and a curse for me. I always have my hand on the trigger. And that is really, really powerful in the first phase of the company. That's really, really powerful for a founder. It's not so much an advantage as a CEO. Like having your hand on a trigger is not so good as a CEO because you're supposed to be strategic and think about the business 24 months from now. But from a founder, you have to go and you have to know when to shoot. Where so often I hear folks saying like, I spent 3 weeks developing this business plan, or I spent 4 years in college studying entrepreneurship to learn how to be an entrepreneur. Nobody's going to teach you how to be an entrepreneur. You just have to go. That is the most important thing, I believe, for an entrepreneur. And I think I have that trait, and I'm really grateful for that. The trait that I'm trying to develop now is that really scary chasm from founder to CEO, learning to take my hand off the trigger and to think more strategically on where to point and shoot bullets. And that's something that I'm not so great at, but I'm hoping that I can pick up and learn through support from others.
Well, as you think about strategies, you have to know that when someone looks at a company like yours that has had success, that it's found its niche, that is expanding, that has filled a market that is not going to go away, everybody's wondering, okay, Claire, what's next? What do you add to your product line? What do you do to expand this company? Or do you sell this company and start a new company, a new business? So you're obviously an idea person. Where do you go from here?
So my passion and what I've been building at AntFlow is to make the world better for people with periods. And there's a long way to go to make the world better for people with periods. There's so many opportunities there. We talked about the dispenser, the dispensing mechanisms. We can also think about the disposal systems, right? Like anybody that has tried to throw a tampon away in the bathroom, it is a horrible experience. And then anybody that has tried to clean up the tampons, there's that brown little bag. The tampon never gets in the brown little bag. It's a biohazard with bodily contents. So we did develop a disposal unit, which I think is behind me. There it is, that white one. It's a disposal unit for menstrual products, and it is no touch. So you just wave your hand over it, you throw the product in, and then you don't have to worry about it. And then from a facilities member perspective, you just open the door, also no touch. It's a continuous liner bag so that you never have to engage with the menstrual blood or the menstrual products that are in the disposal unit. So those are just two things that are happening currently. But as I mentioned, there's so much more to do to make the world better for people with periods. And that's really where I'm passionate.
You also are sure that you don't forget the women who may not have access to offices, right? I mean, this is something that you feel, I use the word homeless women, but not just homeless women, but that women in all phases of existence have access to products, right?
Right. The fact of the matter is tampons and pads are not covered by WIC. They are not covered by food stamps. In most states, there is an additional expense for the menstrual products, including a tax. And all of those combined can be really costly to be somebody that menstruates. And so what we do at AntFlow to make sure that the world is better for all people with periods, not just the ones that are at fancy dancy convention centers or at an office or at a lovely restaurant. We stock all of Cameron Mitchell restaurants. We make sure that we also, for every 10 tampons and pads that we sell, we donate one to a menstruator in need. And to us, that means that we've donated back to Mid-Ohio Food Bank. We've donated back to 914 Cares in New York. We donate to Period, which is a large organization that supports menstruators all across the United States. And so it is important for me, and it's important for the company, that we are supporting all people with periods, not just the ones that have access to going to facilities with our dispensers.
No, it's not just your age, it is your gender that's remarkable for a CEO, for an entrepreneur, for a startup, even in this day and age. You probably, as you are marketing, and especially in the early days when you were trying to push this out and get contracts, we're dealing with men who don't deal with this problem. Most CEOs still are men who have no idea why this young woman is trying to tell them about pads and tampons. It's not their problem. Did you find that there was a gender barrier to launching this?
So it's really interesting you bring this up, and it's actually still astonishing to me today. So yes, we do sell to people that don't menstruate. Most of our customers are janitors or facilities managers. These are, the facilities managers at United School Network, all men, right? And they have personally never dealt with this issue. What we learned though, is that they're interested in learning about the issue. And everybody knows somebody that menstruates, whether it's your daughter, whether it's your wife, your girlfriend, your sister, everybody knows somebody that menstruates. And oftentimes our janitors or facilities members have never had the opportunity to ask the questions that they want to ask. They've never been given the safe space to have that conversation. And then once they learn about it, they're like, oh yeah, we got to stock our business and school bathrooms with tampons and pads. I can't believe that this hasn't happened already. Conversely, when we have pitched to women leaders at organizations, typically folks who have maybe even gone through menopause, we're confronted with a barrier of, I've brought menstrual products my whole life. Why do we need to offer it to others?
Wow, that surprises me.
Yeah, it's a super bummer. And I'm calling you all out. Come on, people. We got to send the elevator back down. And so, even internally, just like every company, we have people that we sell to and people that we don't sell to. And unfortunately, right now, we don't sell to women who are in menopause or we perceive to be in menopause because consistently, we are confronted with, I brought products my whole life. Why do we need to offer them for free now? Or folks in HR that are like, well, if we offer this for women, we got to offer something for men. At the end of the day, men don't experience this. And so it's really, really tricky to unravel these biases, especially the biases that are women against women. And so that's something that I really hope that we can change in the next phase of our company. We've already supported giving men space to have those conversations. We've changed legislation. And now in this next phase, I hope that we can have everybody feel comfortable in these kinds of conversations.
You mentioned you changed legislation. How did that come about?
Yes, super happy to say there are now 6 states that require middle schools and high schools to offer free tampons and pads in their bathrooms. And why that is powerful is a case study alone in New York City public schools. By offering free menstrual products in the bathrooms, they saw an attendance increase amongst young girls by 2.4%. The number sounds small, but in the grand scheme of things, an attendance increase of that amount for the cost that it takes to offer free menstrual products for schools, just $5 per female student per year, the cost to benefit is evident. And that is why now schools, whether they're in states that require it or states that they don't, example, Ohio does not have that requirement. We still stock tons of schools across Ohio with free menstrual products for their students. But that is the piece of legislation that we're really glad to support, and to support schools in states that have the legislation and the states that don't.
I think here in Columbus, wasn't it City Councilwoman Elizabeth Brown who lobbied for these products to be free in city bathrooms?
Yes.
Sometimes local municipality that steps in, right?
Yes, huge testament to Elizabeth Brown. Now our recreation centers do offer menstrual products for free in the bathrooms, which is incredible because that is reaching a population that might not have access otherwise. And so, yes, incredible grant, and that it is happening at a city level, municipality, as well as county, state, and maybe even federal. So those are the changes that we are seeing.
Yeah, Katie Smith is from CEO Magazine, who's helping with this series, and we're going to call her in for a second because I think she has a question she'd like you to share with everyone as well. So, Katie, welcome, and isn't Claire a delight to hear from?
Absolutely, so much great energy. Great to see you, Claire, and thank you, Colleen. Claire, there are so many young, creative, inspired people who have great ideas, who want to start businesses, and they have nowhere to begin. I imagine myself being one of them, and I hear you talking about the money that you've been able to raise. I think you said 2.7 million, and that's an incredible amount of money for any small entrepreneur who's just starting out. For people who didn't grow up around others who were in the venture capital space, for people who didn't have the privilege of being able to do something like work at Cover My Meds and be exposed to the great community that we have here, what is your advice for people who have a great idea, but they have no idea where to begin and they don't know anyone with money?
That resonates with me. Sometimes folks say, raise your first round from friends and family. And I'm like, friends and family, who? And so I totally hear that. I mentioned I grew up in Toledo. And so this is me. Where I was able to find support was actually through the Startup Weekend by Techstars. There are startup weekends that happen all over the country, as well as right here in Columbus. Startup Weekend is a great place to start. I then went through Techstars Accelerator Program, which I always talk about as a really incredible way for me to get a fast track in learning about venture capital. And then additionally, especially in Columbus, there's so many resources, whether it be Wake Up Startup, Startup Grind, Tiger Trek New Albany, so many opportunities in Columbus. And what I did when I was first starting is I looked up every single networking event in the city of Columbus. And I asked to attend all of them. And I know especially the ones that are prestigious charge a fee. And I was waitressing to get money. And I didn't have the money to be able to pay even the $10 to get in, $18 to $10 to get in. And so what I did is I would contact the hosts or leaders and say, is there a way that I can volunteer? I will do anything. Just let me volunteer. And for me, that allowed me to build relationships with the leaders of the organization. It allowed me to sit at the little greeting table and sign people in to learn more about what was going on in the community. And so those are just some hacks and tricks to be able to get started today.
I know you were named 30 under 30 by Forbes magazine, no less. What was that like? And is that something that you ever envisioned when you were waitressing and trying to get this off the ground?
Oh my gosh. No, I never imagined it. And I was also thankful to be a recipient of Columbus's 40 under 40. And at the time, I actually received it when I was 20 years old and it was at the casino. And so they had to have an extra little bodyguard to make sure that I didn't go into the casino and gamble when I was 20. Anyways, very funny. But awards for me were always very peculiar. I always looked at them as another opportunity to talk more about tampons on a different stage, right? Like, who'd imagine Forbes or Business Insider or, Columbus's 40 under 40 to be having open conversations about menstruation. And that award allowed me a platform to talk about menstruation. And so that's kind of how I looked at awards. And so I've always been incredibly grateful. And also it's incredible. I could have never imagined it.
It is incredible what you have done. And I go back to where we started talking about the fact that you are still so young. You clearly have ideas and a perspective on connecting and networking and how you grow your business from those opportunities. But I think you are someone who made your opportunities. Is that how you look at it? That you were persistent? You say you don't know a lot about strategy, but it sounds to me like you're pretty strategic.
Man, did I make my opportunities? I think that everybody can look around and see problems. And then some people are more interested in solving them. And I have to think about that one a little bit more, but I am really grateful with the position that I have been in to not just be able to see problems, but also have the hunger and grit and energy to start solving some of them as well.
Well, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you the question that I always ask everyone. I usually say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? But I'm going to ask you, because you are so young, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I mean, where do you think, if I talk to Claire 10 years from now, if I'm still alive, where do you think you will be then? Where do you want to be?
My dear friend, Sarah Abu Ashed, defined success as finding happiness and being able to maintain it. And I love that because it allows for me to not just find it once, but also have the continued energy to maintain that happiness. And so for me right now, I imagine myself 10 years from now, like twirling around, not worrying about spending more money on organic groceries than like the regular ones, and enjoying life. And that's really what I hope to continue to do.
Well, we have enjoyed having you with us. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas and your success story, and best of luck to you. I think you are going places and you're going to make Columbus very proud.
Well, thank you. Glad to call Columbus my home.
On behalf of our Columbus Chamber, thanks to all of you for attending this morning's CEO Insights. Very special thanks to Claire Coder. Isn't she amazing? And NBC4's Colleen Marshall. Thank you, Colleen, for supporting us. I'd like to especially thank our wonderful underwriters, our presenting partners, the law firm of Barnes and Thornburg, Plant Moran, the accounting and professional services firm, and First Merchants Bank. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Crimson Cup Coffee and Tea as our networking sponsor this morning. And I'd like to encourage all of you to visit our website, columbus.org/events, to learn more about all of our upcoming programs, especially our next CEO Insights programs. Our experience series also is coming up. It's titled Developing a Growth Mindset and Enhancing Your Culture. That will be on June 2nd. Thanks, everyone, on behalf of your Columbus Chamber of Commerce. See you soon.